Actually, I'd like to start out by just giving a general overview of what is in the budget. And this budget actually is a very good document because it stays within the 2% spending cap. This House and state government has been very fiscally responsible and accountable over the past several years by staying within the spending cap. And basically, we increase the spending to $96.2 billion or 2%. So it's right on target. The budget also includes all kinds of very positive aspects that are important to the people of New York State. For example, in education, there's approximately $25 billion in school aid statewide. That is a record on behalf of the children of New York State, their learning opportunities, and their future. There's a school aid increase of more than $1.4 billion from fiscal year 2016. We completely eliminate the gap elimination school aid cuts that unfortunately were imposed in this House in 2009 and 10. The Senate Republican majority has worked extraordinarily hard to get rid of the GEA, and we do that this year. Over $1 billion increase in operating aid for education from fiscal year 2016. We also take action on behalf of the hardworking, overburdened taxpayers of New York State. There's included a $1 billion in tax cuts that is targeted at middle-class families, middle-class earners.
Harris?
I'm sorry, but it appears that this answer is not connected either to the question presented or to the bill before us. I think Senator Young is discussing things that...
I think Senator Gianaris, the sponsor said she wanted to give some background before she got to the question, so we'll allow that and then let her get to the question.
Okay, it just would help us all move the debate along if the answers were relevant and were actually related to a bill that we've seen, which these answers are not.
Mr. President, I think it's extremely relevant to outline what is included in this state budget. So on behalf of the hardworking, overburdened taxpayers in New York State, there's $1 billion in tax cuts that are targeted at middle-class families, middle-class earners, and this is real tax relief for real people. On top of that, there is $2.7 billion in funding for STAR and Enhanced STAR, and we all know in this room how important it is to provide significant property tax relief for homeowners across the state. Under health and mental hygiene, so many of our colleagues have come to me, to others. We have a task force that is dealing with the heroin and opioid addiction crisis that we see in every community, every corner of this state. It has affected so many families, so many individuals. And under the enacted budget, it will include an additional $25 million for expansion of treatment, recovery, and prevention services for heroin and opioid use and addiction disorders for a total of $166 million. We also direct $200 million for statewide health care capital to benefit community-based providers. That will ensure that we have access to quality health care across the state. And we also make critical public health investments in organ donation awareness, women's health, and Lyme disease prevention. Under higher education, and I can hear students and parents cheering across the state, but there will be no tuition increase this year. For transportation, there's a $25.1 billion commitment for a multi-year DOT capital plan that includes additional funds for roads and bridges, non-MTA upstate and downstate transit,
Question?
rail freight,
Senator
and aviation.
Gianaris, why do you rise?
Would the
When I
sponsor yield for a
finish.
question?
She
When I
will yield
finish.
upon completion of,
Whatever it is she's doing?
she's giving a summary
I'm
of,
almost done, Senator Gianaris. I'm just going over.
We're only
the
getting
main-
started. We're not almost done, Senator Young.
I would ask all
And
members to
finally-
please observe decorum and respect. Senator Young.
And finally, under environment, clean air, clean water, protect our natural resources, there's $200 million in new funds for water quality improvement programs. This brings total spending on water infrastructure to $400 million, and that's a $123 million increase to the Environmental Protection Fund from last year to bring total EPF spending to $300 million. And at this point, I would be very happy to yield for some questions.
Senator Squadron has the floor. He had the question posed.
It's the same question. Now it has over $100 billion in taxpayer money being spent behind it, much of which is not in this bill and is not in the light of day or something anyone in the state except for the so-called 3 men in a room are aware of. So in that context, I think the question is even more significant. With all of the taxpayer spending in this bill, is there anything to increase integrity or people's faith in our state government?
As we know in this chamber, we passed ethics reforms in our one-house budget that included stripping pensions from public officials who are convicted of felonies, and also we had term limits for leaders that was included. Unfortunately, during budget negotiations, those major reforms were not in the final budget.
I yield the floor to Senator Gianaris.
Senator Gianaris.
Will the sponsor yield?
Sponsor yields. Sponsor yields.
I heard the thorough summary that the sponsor gave just a few minutes ago, and I'm wondering whether she was announcing a budget deal for all of us, or if those bills exist in some manner that we can look at all these wonderful provisions she cited in her summary. Information that nobody else is.
Through you, Mr. President, these are the items that will be included in the final budget, and those will be coming to us by messages of necessity.
Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Certainly.
Sponsor yields.
Are those provisions in any of the 3 bills before this House that was accepted out of the Finance Committee report?
Through you, Mr. President, as I said, I wanted to give an overview of the budget as we kicked off the deliberation process and began voting on the budget bills, and those are the items that I wanted to highlight.
Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Of course.
Sponsor yields.
Is it the sponsor's intention that this body should discuss, debate, and vote on provisions that none of us have seen on a piece of paper, none of us have seen in our new tablets, or none of us have had the ability to review or have a deliberation on?
Through you, Mr. President, again, these are the elements of the budget that we will be passing, and we are going to push hard to get the people's work done in a timely manner.
Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Of course.
Sponsor yields.
Is it the sponsor's contention that there are bills that are currently being drafted that no one has seen that will contain those provisions, or is this just her opinion of what she would like to see in the budget?
Through you, Mr. President, these are items that we are pushing to have in the final budget, and I am confident that they will be there.
Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
What is the source of the sponsor's confidence that they will be in the final budget?
The source of the confidence is that we have been working closely with the Assembly and the Governor in a bipartisan way to come up with a final budget agreement.
Yield.
Yes.
Senator Gianaris. Sponsor yields.
I understand that there have been discussions going on. I also understand the discussions by public reports have been on and off various times. I'm also aware that there were members of the majority conference who came out of your recent conference saying there were no deals on many of the issues you just pointed out were part of the budget. So I'm wondering, on behalf of not only my conference, but on behalf of the public, who is dying to know what's going to be in this budget if we ever get to see it, where does the confidence that those provisions will be in a budget that's yet to be printed come from?
Through you, Mr. President, these are items that have been negotiated, and I have a lot of faith.
So let me remind everyone, we do have a bill before us. I did give some flexibility because Senator Young had asked to explain generally the budget process. I allowed that before she answered Senator Squadron's question. Senator Gianaris, I have allowed you to ask some questions. You need to be germane now in accordance with Rule 10. I gave you some opportunity, and I gave them some opportunity, Senator Gianaris. Senator Gianaris.
Bang the gavel all you want, Senator
Gianaris, you're out of order.
This is not a one-way
Senator Gianaris, you're out of order. Please take your seat. Senator Gianaris, please take your seat.
Excuse me. Let's calm down a little bit, both sides. And I would like to see Senator Gianaris' further questions and hopefully we could move to the point and get on with this at a reasonable hour.
Thank you, Senator DeFrancisco.
Senator Young, do you yield?
Yes.
My final question on this topic, Mr. President, is whether the sponsor would like to share with us the document she's reading from that outlines the budget provisions that none of us have seen, so that we could fairly evaluate what she tells us is going to be in the final budget.
Through you, Mr. President, this is a list of items that I put together that I believe will be highlights in the final budget.
And would the sponsor be willing to share that with us so we can all have that available to us as we discuss the budget?
Of course I will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Squadron.
Thank you, Mr. President. In this bill, we've heard a lot about what's in it. Is there anything that establishes limits on outside income for members of the state legislature, as the governor proposed in his campaign finance and ethics reform bill? Part
Senator
B.
Squadron, are you asking Senator Young to yield?
Forgive me, I forgot that we had not established that. If the sponsor would yield.
Senator Young, will you yield?
Yes.
And I'll repeat the
Squadron.
question through you, Mr. President. Is there anything in this bill that establishes limits on outside income for members of the state legislature as proposed in Part B of the governor's campaign finance and ethics reform, Article 7 proposal?
So through you, Mr. President, I'm going to defer to the point in time when those issues actually would have been included, because they would not have been under the public protection part of the budget, which we are considering right now. As I said, as finance chair, I gave an overview of highlights that I believe will be in the final budget. Right now, we are considering the public protection part of the budget, and I would be very happy to answer any questions you may have about public protection.
If the sponsor will continue to yield.
Yes.
It's Part C of the governor's ethics proposal, which implemented various campaign finance reforms in this bill.
Answer.
The sponsor will continue to yield.
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Soft money housekeeping limit, is that in this bill?
Through you, Mr. President, I would be happy to answer any questions on the public protection part of the budget. My colleague seems to be asking about other areas of the budget right now, and so I'd be glad to answer anything about public protection, and I'm hopeful that he can come up with a question regarding that issue.
The sponsor will continue to yield.
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
When is the appropriate time to discuss ethics reforms that were proposed by the governor as part of the budget and not introduced by the leadership of this House?
It's not under the public protection part of the budget, which we are considering right at the moment.
Yield.
Yes. If it's about public protection.
In prior years, were the provisions I discussed included in the public protection and general government budget proposal?
We are not, through you, Mr. President, we are not looking at other years right now. We are looking at this year.
Continue to yield.
If it's about public protection, if not, I will not.
Senator Squadron, is your question relative to public protection?
Mr. President, I believe all of my questions have been relevant to public protection, and I will continue to
President,
Senator Young.
point of order.
Senator Young, what
Point
is
of
your point of
order.
order?
We are talking about the public protection portion of the budget. I have yet to hear one question about any element about the public protection portion of the budget that is before the House. And I will be happy to answer any questions regarding that bill that is before us. Otherwise, if it's about off topics, other topics, then I unfortunately will not be able to yield.
So, Senator Squadron, do you choose to speak on the bill based upon that?
point of order, Mr. President.
Point of order, Senator Squadron. What is your point of order stated?
As I understand the customs of this House, when a bill sponsor or any member speaking on the floor raises a topic or an issue, it is appropriate to pursue that topic or issue for someone else questioning it, much as we do not name members on the floor unless a member is named or speaks themselves, at which point it becomes appropriate. So since these topics were raised, it seems to me they are appropriate and germane to the bill.
Senator Squadron, an opportunity was presented before on an amendment. You were heard on that amendment. It was ruled non-germane, and a ruling of the chair was given and sustained. Therefore, the sponsor of this particular bill, the chair of the Finance Committee, has indicated she will take questions specific to the bill before the House, which is specifically on public protection. So accordingly, I would ask you to pursue that line of questioning or speak on the bill.
Mr. President, if the sponsor would yield.
I will yield if it's on public protection of this year's budget.
Mr. President, through you, an attempt within the narrow parameters, I would like to speak about the debate in this House between myself and the sponsor of this bill on the one-house budget that went before this House. Does the sponsor agree with me that asking that question would be appropriate and germane?
We are discussing the bill before the House. And I will no longer yield, Mr. President.
Senator Squadron, you wish to speak on the bill?
On the bill, Mr. President.
Senator Squadron on the bill.
President, no amount of discussion about provisions that are not in this bill, that have not been made public, and that may or may not end up in an enacted budget will distract from the underlying fact that the leadership of this House has put before us a budget that has no ethics reform or public integrity provisions at all, despite the fact that they were proposed by the governor. No amount of unwillingness to discuss the budget will justify a refusal to talk about a significant part of the governor's budget proposal. The provisions in that proposal will never be before this House because the leadership of this House refuses to call them up for a vote. So by refusing to answer questions relevant to the provisions of law that are amended by this bill, that are relevant to a history of how we have of this bill in prior years, does not justify refusing to engage a critical issue. I understand it's an uncomfortable issue. It's uncomfortable after the year Albany has had to refuse to talk about ethics reform. It's uncomfortable after what we've seen to refuse to talk about closing the LLC loophole. But it is germane. It's germane to the overall budget process, which is where this conversation started, and it's germane to this very bill. If the sponsor or the majority would commit to a robust discussion on the governor's ethics reform proposal, I would be happy to sit down, yield, and deal with that debate when the bill comes up. But the sponsor and the majority know full well that will never happen. The hope here is that this uncomfortable portion of the budget debate comes and goes as quickly as possible, and all of the other things that may or may not end up in the budget, all of the other ways in which the taxpayers' money is getting spent, will distract from an underlying flaw, which is public integrity and ethics are being erased from this budget and now erased from debate on the floor. I promised a few moments ago that you would keep hearing from me on this. I was hoping that a robust debate on this issue would be it for the year. However, absent a debate, I guess I just have to keep talking to you, Mr. President. It's extraordinary that we have a budget that's supposed to have so much that it may or may not have, but that no one would claim has ethics reform, and that no one's willing to answer any questions about why or the thinking or whether the LLC loophole is appropriate and within the law. It's really extraordinary and disappointing. 154 billion reasons why it's a mistake. With that, Mr. President, I sit down. I do have more questions, but unfortunately, I don't believe anyone will answer them. Thank you.
Senator Kruger.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the sponsor would please yield to some questions.
Yes, Senator Kruger, and I do want to point out, because Senator DeFrancisco said your first question may be, do you have a financial plan on your desk? And I want to point out, you should have this financial plan on your desk.
I
Senator
want to
Kruger.
thank the sponsor. That actually wasn't the question I was going to ask now. I did point out in the earlier statements that We have the financial plan, we just don't have any of the budget bills that would reflect how we think we got that financial plan. But I'm staying germane to this bill, following through on some of the other questions. So in this bill, it specifically omits Part A, criminal justice. Can the sponsor please tell me what we chose to omit from the bill in criminal justice?
Sponsor yields.
If you could just give us a moment.
Just a moment, Senator Kruger.
That information was just relayed to me. Part A actually is the executive proposal to allow the executive to appoint an independent special counsel to review allegations regarding police or peace officers.
Through you, Mr. President, the sponsor would continue to yield.
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So since that proposal by the governor has been omitted, am I to believe that proposal will not be seen anywhere in the budget this year?
Through you, Mr. President, that part was not agreed to.
So through you, Mr. President, to continue, if the sponsor would yield.
Sponsor yields.
Yes.
So just to make sure we're all speaking the same language. So it was not agreed to, so we will not see anything else relating to that section of law in another budget bill.
That part A, was not agreed to by the governor, the Assembly, and the Senate, so that Part A is gone.
Okay. Through you, Mr. President, the sponsor will continue to leave, not to leave, excuse me.
It's
not
only
even late
5:30.
yet. I know, exactly. Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
This
Thank
is like
you.
Casablanca. It's the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Senator yields.
Part D of this bill has also been intentionally omitted, and I believe that was related to counterterrorism. Could the sponsor explain what is removed from the public protection bill relating to counterterrorism, and whether we might see that in some other bill yet to go into print?
Thank you, Mr. President. There is an agreement on Part D, and we also are getting some more information right as we speak.
Through you, Mr. President, so if the sponsor would continue to yield.
Sponsor will yield.
So unlike the previous omitted section, I'm hearing that there is some kind of agreement, but that's not in the public protection bill. Did I hear you right?
President, this actually was the governor's request, and you will be seeing information about the counterterrorism in the Alpha Bill, the Education, Labor, and Family Assistance Bill, and that was something that the governor requested to be transferred over to that portion of the bill, of the state budget, and it was endorsed by Ray Kelly.
Through you, Mr. President, if the sponsor would continue to yield.
Sponsor yields.
Thank you. Part H has also been intentionally omitted. I believe that was related to paid family leave. If the sponsor could let me know what the story of paid family leave is in this budget.
Mr. President, Part H was omitted, but you will be seeing that item handled in another budget bill.
Through you, Mr. President, the sponsor will continue to yield.
Sponsor
Thank you.
yields.
Would we know what that budget bill would be?
We're looking at the Alpha bill also for that.
Mr. President, the sponsor will continue to yield.
Sponsor yields.
So just to make sure I'm correct, because I'm standing here on the floor with all of us and not out on a computer, is there an Alpha bill in existence for us all to look at and see where these sections show up and what they actually say?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Certainly. Is there an Alpha bill on LRS or somewhere in existence in print where we might review the counterterrorism and paid family leave sections of the bill?
Through you, Mr. President, those fine points are being put on the budget right now as we speak.
On the bill, Mr. President.
Senator Kruger on the bill.
Thank you. So I think part of what you're hearing here tonight is a bit of a frustration that we have a bill we're being asked to vote on. Objectively, there's not that many things any of us might have a problem with in the bill. The catch is most of the meat of the bill and of public protection has been omitted. I went through only a small number of the omitted sections within this bill. So for those of us who are familiar with how we usually go through the process of evaluating the public protection and general government bill within the state budget, almost all of our questions about where's the meat and where are the sections, they're not here, Mr. President. We're being asked to vote on language bills that have most of the language missing. We haven't dealt with any appropriation bills, so we sincerely can't have a conversation about a hypothetical spending plan. We certainly haven't seen any of the revenue proposals that my colleague spoke about in her opening before, so we can't have a discussion about whether those are good, bad, real, not real, add up to the numbers handed to us, because we're sitting here at 25 to 6 on Thursday, and none of those bills exist, although some people think they know what will be in them, even when there are sections that actually should be in the 3 bills that are before us today. So I'm not really sure where to go with the more questions, even though I have many questions, because unfortunately the answers are going to be, that section was omitted, we don't have that yet, but we're pretty sure it will be somewhere else, and we're pretty sure we can tell you some of what it will look like. That's not really how we're supposed to do budget bills. I think it was said on this floor not too long ago that there's faith that there will be certain things. I like faith. There's all kinds of places for faith in our lives. But actually, when you're voting on the budget of the state of New York, which may hypothetically be $155.599 billion, you actually want to see the budget bills. You want to know where the numbers are coming from, how they're going to be spent, what is the changes in our statutes that will affect 19.5 million people. So it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. You're hearing that from my colleagues and myself that, I don't know, when we studied budgets in school, I actually studied government budgets in school, this wasn't really how it worked. And you actually got to see actual budget legislation to vote on. That was a full package with time to look at it and time to hold them up against each other. And we're not doing that, Mr. President. And I don't think really any of us can justify it. But I don't have any more questions on this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Kruger. Senator Hoylman?
On the bill.
Senator Hoylman on the bill.
I rise to express my frustration that we can't discuss the very sound ethics proposals that Governor Cuomo has proposed, because that portion of the budget has been entirely eliminated. And so it presents a quandary, I think, for us on this side of the aisle. You know, I can't tell whether our friends in the other conference are sticking their head in the sand willingly.
Zolio, why do you rise?
President, will the Speaker yield?
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator Hoylman, do you yield? Senator Hoylman yields.
Would the Senator Hoylman be so kind as to advise me in the governor's and this body and the governor's proposal where in the public protection portion of the governor's pro-offer were any of these subjects referenced?
Through you, Mr. President.
Senator Hoylman.
I was articulating my frustration, Mr. President, that because the majority has eliminated in its entirety, every ethic reform proposed by the executive. Therefore, we have no opportunity to debate or discuss it.
President,
Bill.
will the Senator continue to yield?
Senator Hoylman, do you yield?
I yield. Yes, yes, Mr. President.
Senator Hoylman, you haven't answered my question at all. Put the rhetoric aside and tell me specifically.
Senator Gianaris, why do you rise?
Please have the questions directed through the chair.
Please have questions directed through the chair, please.
Thank you, Senator Gianaris. Mr. President, through you. I regret that Senator Hoylman has failed to answer my question. I regret that rather than the specifics of the question, which are where in the governor's public protection portion of the budget that he pro-offered were any of the subjects that Mr. Hoylman references. Because, Mr. President, we are on the public protection portion of the state budget. These subjects that Mr. Hoylman wishes to discuss are certainly relevant to discuss, but not present in the governor's bill that was before us that we are now debating.
Through you, Mr. President.
Senator Hoylman.
I share my colleague's frustration because the conference has eliminated in its entirety every ethics proposal. We can stand here and shadow box, but there is nothing to talk about. And that is a convenient way to avoid the subjects of ethics conform, and I would even argue it's a clever way. But it's not what the people of New York need in this moment of crisis in state government.
I, again, deeply regret that Senator Hoylman sidesteps, pivots, pushes around the subject that I've asked him directly about, and it's apparent that he obviously has no understanding of what Governor Cuomo's public protection portion of the budget did, or the measure that's before us now for consideration. With that, that frustration that he has, he's imparted on everyone else because of his own intransigence in answering the questions.
Senator Hoylman.
Through you, Mr. President.
Senator Hoylman is on the bill.
I'll say that I'll read every part that was actually up for discussion at the general government table, which is the table relevant to the PPGG bill. Closing the so-called LLC loophole, establishing limits on outside income for members of the state legislature, implementing various campaign finance reform proposals, a soft money housekeeping limit, disclosure of intermediaries, additional reporting in connection with that, lowering contribution limits, public financing of elections. The list goes on and on. We should be extremely disappointed that we're not discussing in a fulsome manner the pluses and negatives of the governor's proposals. I think that we, Mr. President, have taken this Watergate moment, which our leader has referred to in the Democratic Conference, and we're turning it into a Waterloo moment because the voters are going to remember. The voters are going to remember that we did nothing in this budget, notwithstanding terrific proposals put forth by the executive. I'll be voting nay, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Hoylman. Senator Rivera?
Thank you, Mr. President. In my olden age, I've actually gotten
Senator Rivera, are you on the bill?
I'm on the bill.
Senator Rivera on the bill.
Not necessarily while I was younger, but when I got a little older, I started to enjoy theater. I've actually gotten quite into it. And what I'm watching here right now is actually quite an entertaining play, if I may. While earlier, I would recall that Chairwoman Young went on and on about something that was not in this bill and was questioned about that by Senator Janaris, and Senator Janaris was poo-pooed that, no, you shouldn't do that. And then when Senator Hoylman took time to express the fact that there was in the general government table a whole discussion from the governor's proposal about ethics reform, which is something that we so need in this chamber and in the legislative body, then he was poo-pooed by Senator Nozzolio about intransigence and what have you. So very good theater that we are watching here today. But ultimately, what this theater is, for those that might be watching and paying attention, is about the money that you give us as government to put into governmental things that we do. And there are many, many things that we are not talking about today and we will not be talking about for a while because we have not seen any of them. The bills that we have before us are actually plain old vanilla bills. They cover some basic things that are absolutely necessary, but the big items that we have been discussing or that we really need to discuss are not in any of these bills. And what many of my colleagues did already was express very clearly the fact that just one issue, when we're talking about ethics reform or campaign finance reform, were not included at all in these pieces of legislation. That is relevant, it is germane, it is appropriate to discuss because it is so important to the work that we do here. We need to have the trust of the people that we govern. And unfortunately, whether my colleagues want to accept it or not, many folks don't trust us. So I will be, because this bill in particular, Mr. President, doesn't have anything particularly horrible in it. It certainly has some exclusions and things that have been excised, as well as the other two bills that we're going to discuss, which means that we have plenty of time yet. That we're not going to get to that April 1st deadline, Mr. President. We're going to go over that. It's going to happen because there's so many things that we still have yet to discuss. The real big things they have not been on the agenda. So I will say bravo to all the theatricality that's been going on in this chamber. I will vote in the affirmative in this piece of legislation, but I would ask everybody to at least accept the fact that the frustration that we feel on this side is real. We have no idea what is going to be in some of these pieces of legislation. You all apparently do, but we don't. And we take it very seriously, the responsibility that we have to our constituents, so we want to take some time to look things over. We hopefully will have that time in the future, Mr. President. As it is just for this very vanilla piece of legislation, I'll be voting in the affirmative. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Rivera. Is there any other senator wishing to be heard? Seeing none and hearing none, debate is closed and the secretary will ring the bell.